Good morning. This is the Blanesville webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You get more information about this show and past and previous shows at our website, which is behind me, blanesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Mark Lund, who's a physician, professional, an executive mentor, and author, for being my guest today. Mark, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay, that is Mark Lund. Dr. Lund is a physician, leader, business coach, and consultant with over 35 years of experience leading high-performance teams in high-stakes medical environments. So, Mark, you started when you were 7? You were like the youngest guy ever in the field?
I wish. I actually started off as a physician assistant coming out of a military college down in Virginia, the Virginia Military Institute, and obviously learned some leadership there. But I really count my 35 years starting when I took my first job as a physician assistant in an emergency room in very far northern Maine, a place called Millinocket. And that was a place that PAs ran the ER, and there was no physician on site. So you had to stand up and sort of learn how to lead.
I want to talk about that in a second, but I should also mention that Dr. Lund has experience in ICUs, ORs, ERs, as an interventional pulmonologist and critical care expert. He has mastered the art of building trust, driving accountability, and fostering team cohesion under extreme pressure. Now, Dr. Lund applies his deep experience to coaching and mentoring executives, entrepreneurs, and professionals across industries. His mission is clear: empower leadership teams with the skills to build resilient, high-impact organizations that thrive in any environment. And so, as we're talking, Mark, I kind of find it interesting. So, you started out as a physician's assistant, and is it me or is it in general that field is already all of a sudden going like crazy? Like at least in North Carolina, you can't see doctors anymore or MDs. You have to see physician PAs. Is that true in Bucks County as well?
It's true nationally, and it's there's a number of different uh, environmental factors that are causing it. But by the way, interestingly, it was down in North Carolina at Duke that the physician assistant concept came into existence, and they sort of nurtured it and brought it, and it's now a nationwide impact for patients.
Because as you say it, it's kind of interesting too, in the sense that I oftentimes prefer seeing a PA and I can get in to see a PA and they're great. And so it's just it was like 10 years ago, hadn't even been familiar with it. Now if I want an appointment, I can see a doctor a month, 2 months down the road, sometimes 6 months down the road. I can see PA hopefully within a week.
Yeah.
Kind of incredible. So what led you to become then, so you were a PA, what led you to become then a physician?
While I was up and working in that small ER, I had a very incredible doctor who we had a very difficult problem to solve. And I asked him, I said, how did you know what to do when I called him in? He says, well, actually, I didn't. He says, but I understood the problem. I understood the physiology, what was going. I understood the actual drugs and the pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics. And he says, and I had a hypothesis, and I then chose to try it and see how it works. He says, whenever you're taking care of the sickest patients, it's like being in a physiology lab. And I realized that I did not have that level of understanding to make those decisions. And I always was driven to want to perform at the highest level. And at that moment, I said, I've got to go back to medical school, and I need to really up level my skill set. And that's what I did. And grateful I did that because I was able to take that and not just become a physician, but work in some of the highest stakes situations that physicians can operate in. So the intensive care unit, the operating room, places where people live or die within moments. And, things can go from calm to chaos, and they are always within the realm of a lot of complexity. So I was really lucky to be able to step from one stone to another, and to be able to serve human beings who needed that type of doctor at that highest level. And I
Now,
loved it.
now, the guy you mentioned, by chance, he's still around?
No, he actually passed, but there was a whole team of incredible physicians up there. Surgeon Peter Mason, uh, Bill Jenkins, who was a family doctor, and Dr. Walmler and Pye, two internists. Great people. I learned a lot from them, and every step of the way, you learn something.
Are any of them still around?
Um, I am not sure. I've lost track of Dr. Pye and Walmer. Um, uh, Dr. Mason has passed, unfortunately, and so did Bill Jenkins. So,
Well, I mention that because if they are by chance, send them a copy of the tape. Because ironically, just before the show, you and I were talking just before I started taping, and we had a mutual friend, and I'll mention him by name, Bill Klein. If he's listening, Bill Klein, let's get in touch again. But it's so funny, a small world, we were talking that. So you decided to become an MD. Why, how'd you get into pulmonology?
you know, um, I was originally very interested in critical care, and again, the ICU and trying to take care of the sickest of the sick. And frequently, the most common route to do that is pulmonary and critical care together. So I decided to pursue that. And as I went along, I had more and more interest in pulmonology. And when I started to do some research in a on a lab looking at a certain type of lung injury in the laboratory, not in humans, I decided I was really more focused on human beings and not just something that would help them. So talked to some of my mentors, and I was offered an incredible opportunity for becoming one of the first people to study and to become what was known as an interventional pulmonologist. And that was opened up to me. I never even thought of it. Um, Never really liked cancer. Not that anyone likes it, but didn't have a medical interest in it. And that became most of my career for a long time because most people that interventional pulmonologists deal with have cancer involving the lungs, whether it's lung cancer or from somewhere that spreads to the lung.
Now, going back before then, I should have asked you, as a kid, you grew up where?
I grew up in New Jersey
Oh,
and
okay, another connection. Where in New Jersey?
uh, northern central, so in Union County outside of Summit.
Okay, no, I lived for a long time in Belmead, central New
Hmm.
Jersey, north central New Jersey. And so as a kid growing up in Jersey there, did you also know that you wanted to be in the medical field?
I had an idea that I wanted to at the time, starting in sixth grade. My first entrepreneurial effort was actually as a magician and escape artist. I did birthday parties all the way up through high school and college, doing stage shows and halftime at football games and things like
Very
that.
cool.
So the reason I bring that up is there was a paper up there, Star Ledger.
I know it, yeah. And by the way, unfortunately, no longer there or just falling. It's
It
just
it's a
online.
shell of itself if it's there at all. You're right. It's certainly not printed anymore. It may still be, using the masthead in an electronic form. But I was interviewed because I was going to be getting out of some chains after jumping into a pool, and they had a cover story above the fold about me getting out of a straitjacket. And that interviewer, so this is back in
Sure.
1979, she had asked me, and I said, yeah, I think I want to go into something medical. So it was clearly in my mind back then, but it wasn't a fruited, well colored in dream.
By the way, do you still practice medicine? Do you still practice magic?
I still play with magic once in a while. The old hands don't quite work the same way, but I do like to do that once in a while, and it is a good way to get attention at the beginning of a keynote talk.
I would imagine a keynote talk. Or I imagine, I don't know, did you ever use it with your patients as well to get their attention?
Sometimes just to sort of calm people down. When I was working in the ER, we would have to take care of children once in a while,
Sure.
or young adults, and it was a way to make the quote doctor be a little less intimidating as he came in to talk to him. So you make something disappear, you make something appear, and you kind of relax them, and then you become a human instead of this intimidating physician.
I love it, Mark, in the sense too that everything I know, and you probably know as well, says that if you like your doctor, first of all, you're going to be a lot better off as a patient, but more significantly, you're also, is it less likely to sue the doctor? You've seen those studies as well?
Exactly, 100%. And actually, just as important as whether or not you get sued, or you don't. The fact is that there's an art and there's a science. And one of the art aspects of it, other than quote unquote laying on hands, is developing a good connection, developing rapport, developing a relationship, allowing that person to feel comfortable, to have a safe place to be able to talk with their physician and to have an open dialogue. Because without that, it was, believe it was Aristotle, might be wrong, but it's reported to have been said, although I don't think either one of us are old enough to have heard him say that. I've been accused of it. But, they have said that if you listen to your patient, they will give you the proper diagnosis all the time. You've got to listen. And that's true whether you're taking care of human beings in medicine, whether you are taking care of a business owner or a team leader. You need to understand what their concern is. They don't come in with the diagnosis. They come in with a pain point. They come in with a concern, a problem, a worry, and you need to understand that. And then from that, distill down what is the root cause of it so that you can solve it for them.
Well, you're raising such a good point, because also just in terms of the relationship with your physician or dentist, you name it, that if I feel good about it or comfortable with it, I'm much more receptive to what he or she is going to say. Because let me ask you this question. It ties into a belief I have. But when I have a doctor or dentist, I'm really impressed that, first of all, they have me call them by their first name, because I don't know how you feel about that, but they always, I think they're very presumptuous. Some of them, they call you by your first name, and you're supposed to call them doctor. So when a doctor calls me, or I call them by their first name, I just feel so much differently about them than if I have to call them doctor and they call me Blaine. Um,
I think you're right. And when I was practicing full time, and again, a lot of the patients that I was taking care of were in some dire circumstances. Either they
uh,
were advanced cancer, they were in the ICU, or maybe they couldn't talk to me, but I needed to talk to their family because their loved one was the one who was so sick. Um, I had a sort of a split approach to it. I would always offer to the patient or their family that they could call me Mark. They could call me Dr. Mark if they wanted to,
right.
but they didn't have to call me Dr. Lund necessarily. If they wanted to, that was up to them, but I didn't, ask them to. My team, I also had them call me Mark, the nurse or whoever. They
Very
didn't need to
nice.
call me Dr. Lund, but in front of the patients, I
Right.
wanted them to call me professionally Dr. Lund. The reason was is that I wanted to have that professionalism that the patients understood.
Sure.
Yes, I'm here to take care of them, and I have done everything I need to get to that point. But to build that again rapport, to build a relationship with that team that needs to come together in a very cohesive manner when the trouble begins. They need to feel that we are together and that we are able to work and move. Part of my leadership, by the way, was that approach of a dynamic leadership. If there's a person there who knows how to solve a problem better than I do, even if I'm the lead, I want them to run that part of it until we need to move to the next level, and then somebody else or I need to take over. I want the best person to be doing the job, which is the way the Navy SEALs operate. They have a hierarchy, they have a commander of a team, but they also allow the leadership in any one moment to be taken by that person who is an expert in that particular aspect of whatever that mission is.
Well, if we can go fast forward then, let's call you Dr. Lund here now. Now, but if we can fast forward, Mark, then, so you did this for what, 35 years, I think you said?
Yeah.
So did you have an epiphany, or did you just wake up one day and decide you had enough of it? How come you got out of doing this on a full-time basis?
So there are a number of things that kind of came together at the same time. Um, the um, the first was 35 years where you are waking up a lot. You're the only person who does one thing, which is interventional pulmonology. there were several vacations that, I say to people that wherever this old body lives, the my soul resides on the coast of Maine. And I would pull into a vacation and I'd get a call. My kids were still young, and I got to take someone to the operating room the next day because I'm the guy in the area who can do that, and have to pack them up the next morning, drive back down, and take someone back to the OR, and the vacation is kind of gone. So, you realize that in spite of your desire to serve human beings at the highest level, there's also there's a cost to that, to your children, to your family, and at some point, it starts to take its overall toll. So that was first. The second is that I had, as I mentioned, my first entrepreneurial experience was way back in sixth grade and continued on.
By the way, you didn't mention it. So what was that in
That
sixth
was
grade?
magician and escape artist, and I did that till I was
Oh,
15.
the magician. Yeah, I got you. Okay.
And the second thing that was sort of there is that became sort of um, a fire that was built. Two physicians and I. Now we were working somewhere between 70 to 90 hours a week each, but on our quote unquote off time, nights and weekends, we started and ran an 8-figure business doing medical staffing for a hospital in the area, and that meant having to run a significant business, and that sort of struck up some passion in me. And the third was is that I was actually given a coach who was absolutely phenomenal. His name was Kurt Cronin, and Kurt was a graduate of the Naval Academy, wound up working his way through the SEAL teams, actually became commander of SEAL Team 6 for a while. And there's a shout out in the old movie Zero Dark 30 from the members of the SEAL team to him specifically. And he really had just a massive impact on me and sort of the way of thinking and looking at things. And with those three coinciding, I decided to leave day-to-day medicine and to wean myself to the point that I was literally taking what I had learned in medicine, which was not the art and science of medicine per se, but it was the skills of being a bold leader, of making high pressure, high stakes decisions in chaotic environments and bringing a cohesive and high performing team together from disparate different groups, and to bring those people together in such a way that we together served at the highest level. Teams will always outperform an individual, and I believed in making the best teams that I possibly could, because you don't have time to sit back and decide. When people get sick, they get sick very quickly. And when people get to the point they're about to die, it's seconds to moments between when they're okay and when they are now dead, and you're trying to do something to bring them back. And you need everybody to have their best game face on, whether that's in the OR where something goes sideways, whether it is somebody who just got sick and now all of a sudden, they need full life support and they need that critical care specialist. You need to be in that place to be able to bring everyone together and have them perform. And I needed to do that to do my job at the very best.
So when did you come to that decision that you were going to get out of kind of day-to-day practice being a doctor to doing these other things?
That was about 6 years ago.
Because it reminds me, you were talking before about, when you were on call. It reminds me, my brother always said he should have become a dermatologist. He never did, but he loved the idea of dermatology, Mark, because typically there aren't emergencies, typically there aren't night hours. They just like that. Unlike, I hadn't realized in your profession that this was your way of life, 24/7 in essence. So 6 or 7 years ago, then you decided you had enough of that and you stopped the practice, or you moved into doing what?
Well, it was probably about 8 years ago I made the decision to start doing that and to have a blended approach, doing some medicine and some of
Cool.
this. And I always want to try to look to master whatever I'm going to do. And you don't master something just because you did it before, or just because you were teaching a lot of things before, doesn't mean that you can teach what you want to do now. So I went and I got trained. I got formally trained as a certified professional coach. Um, I got some experience in positive psychology through the Happiness Business School.
Okay.
I learned about businesses through studying and through networking. So finding mentors as well. So all those things allowed me to develop and hone and sharpen the skill sets that allow me to truly deliver something that is honestly unique. I've actually looked and I've tried to find, there's other physicians who do coaching, most all of them in healthcare.
Right,
There's
right.
other physicians who maybe dabble in the business of healthcare business. But when I look at someone who's been an ICU doctor and learned how to lead and have bold leadership, create the type of teams we did and makes high stakes decisions, who then wants to bring that into the realm of business owners and business leaders, the fact is that I can't find anybody. So I'm really a category of one that is out there right now.
Now, the category one, do you have a separate business on that, or do you call it something?
Yeah. So right now, the original business that we set up to start to work and do this was called Twin Lights Coaching. And we have two arms in there. One is that we work with individuals and couples, typically those who are business owners, because owning and running a small business is tough on relationships, and especially marriages and families. The other arm of it is focusing on, again, leadership. How do we lead? How do we create these high performing teams that increase efficiency, decrease turnover, increase revenue, create the culture that really just changes everything? And how do you make those high stakes decisions when that happens? It doesn't happen for business owners the same way it did in the ICU or the OR, or for a SEAL team commander in a combat zone. But the fact is that they do happen. And the difference in those who succeed and really just throttle up to greater and greater success when those circumstances hit is the ability to make a decision and to have someone who can teach high stakes decision making. Because most places do not teach how to make decisions, particularly high stakes decisions and under pressure.
What I love about what you're saying is concept. I believe in strongly, and I used to do with my clients and students as well, is the concept of making yourself unique, or what is it makes you unique or different than anybody else? Because no offense to coaches, but there are a lot of coaches out there. There are a lot of people who do a lot of stuff. But as you're talking, and I come across a lot of different stuff, Mark. I can't say I've ever met anybody quite like you with your background, which I love. And what you've really done, which I think is very impressive, is you showed how the background ties into whatever their field is. So it's not that you're a doctor who had lots of practice, but your examples were great. That it goes across every field, and if you make decisions, and again, as you said too, lots of people just teach decision making, but not quite in the same context that you do, which I think is really cool.
And it's really important. Again, there's the old adage that we all hope that when crisis hits,
Right.
that we will rise to the occasion, but that's not true. We will always fall to the level of our training. So whether it's again in the ICU, in the operating room, in the emergency room, whether it's our men and women in uniform in a combat zone, or whether it's somebody who's in a boardroom or the C-suite, our ability to solve really complicated, potentially chaotic problems, not simple, but complex problems under stress. And there's actually a physical and physiologic reason for this in our human brain, but it's really hard to be able to do that. And no one really teaches us. So if you're not taught, you don't literally learn how to practice how to make those decisions, you don't have the opportunity to perform at the highest level that your business needs, or at least desires. And that's really important. Again, it's founded in the neurophysiology. It's the blood circulation to our brain, and how when we're under stress, we shift our blood flow from the highest centers that allow us to make complex decisions and thinking to our more emotional centers. because our fight, flight, or freeze, if we think about fight, flight, or freeze, those are all emotions. If you're going to run away, you got to be scared. If you're going to fight for your life, you got to be angry and ready to fight. So fight, flight, or freeze is all based upon emotion, not how to calculate some really challenging and complex environments.
So in terms of people you work with then, I kind of have a sense of what you do now. Who are the folks you work with or help on, or are you looking to help?
Sure. So I work typically with either business owners or with business leaders. They might say, I need help, or my team needs help in learning how to be a better leader, how to have a better leadership team, how to bring my team together so that we're really cohesive and we improve the way and the efficiency of our performance as a team. They might say, look, I hear your story about Big Lou and how culture can really be something that changes everything. And I thought culture was something different than what it was. So it could be them. It can also be those leaders who say, we're doing really well, but what we need is we need to make sure that our emerging leaders are going to do as well as we do. That I want to set them up for success. And if you're P&G, you've got a place and a system built in that is just platinum covered and does a great job. But if you're a small business or even a smaller middle market business, so somewhere between a top line revenue of $1 million up to, let's say, $25-35 million of annual recurring revenue. The fact is that you don't necessarily have a process to really train those people at the highest level. And you may not even have it within your budget to send some of them for an MBA. Not that that actually delivers everything that we would want it to. So those are the companies that really look for me. They either want to upscale themselves or their team, or they want to sit there and prepare themselves for the next generation in those emerging leaders that they realize that they need.
The interesting thing I'm hearing you talk about, Mark, is the fact that what you do isn't theoretically going to be impacted by artificial intelligence. In other words, I'm just listening to you, and that you can read books, you can look at all stuff, but it's not the practical day-to-day stuff that's going to happen. And what I hear you also saying is you kind of got to be aware of that and ideally be prepared for that. And I guess most people aren't, especially in the operating room. I guess you have to be prepared for anything.
When it needs to be a balance, there needs to be some equipoise. We are benefiting every day from high tech. If we think about the way we used to do things, and yes, there are pros and cons to a cell phone versus the old wired phone that you had on your wall. There are benefits to the computer. There are benefits to the fact that we can now do what we're doing right now, which is Zooming.
Right.
So all those things have benefits. But in the world of medicine, there was also this statement of high tech and high touch. You needed to have the high touch. You needed to have the human environment. One of the foundation points that I really focus on is developing authentic communication, which leads to trust. Trust in business, trust in society, but trust in business is abysmally low at this point. How do we create that? It's authentic communication. 3 pillars to authentic communication. It's open expression, mean what you say what you mean. The second is active listening. Listen not just to hear or to retort, but to truly understand what the message is behind what's being said. And that's particularly true in communicating with the younger generations. And the third part is vulnerability. So I call that the voice trust framework. But with that goes the trust accountability loop, which closes that back up, because when you create that trust and you bring trust to people and you show that you're worthy and they're worthy, you not only are holding them accountable, but as a leader, you are accountable to them. Accountability doesn't just go upstream to the direct report. It comes from the direct report down. And when we do that, we build a cohesive system where there is trust, there is belief, there is clarity, and we're able to have the relationships that allow us to be truly cohesive And maybe not to get to the point of the Navy SEALs where they nod and they're saying in that single head movement, my life's in your hands, your life's in mine. I've got your back, don't worry. And the nod comes back as the same thing, but relatively close in being able to have that type of trust among your colleagues and your team.
Well, it's funny you said that because you took the words out of my mouth. But I used to teach the same concept that marketing, I would say, is not just high touch, not just high tech, but it's high touch. And the person combined the both, you got a winner. But so many people think they know the technical aspects of it, but if you don't have that interpersonal relationship, if you don't maintain it, it's not going to work. Mark, in the remaining time, let me shift gears just one more time. And I understand too, in your spare time, if you will, you become an author. And it's just, and you have, by the way, I don't have the copy in front of me. Could you just hold up the book? This was the first book you wrote?
It's
And
my
let me
first
just,
book.
Critical Leadership. I love the title, Critical Leadership Playbook. What gave you the idea to write a book, and when did you write it, by the way?
I wrote this in January of this year,
Oh, okay.
and part of the reason was, I guess, twofold. Number one was to bring my construct of leadership and what it takes to create bold leadership, high performing teams, and to really help to bring people together to not only create that great culture, but also to serve at the highest level. I wanted to lay that out because I had 11 points, and it's actually 10 high stakes pillars in there and a bonus chapter. So that's the 11. But I wanted people to understand my way of approaching it so that they could understand what I was thinking. The second is that I honestly needed to build a bridge. I needed to close a gap because people were saying, well, what is it that a doctor, what
Right.
is it that a critical care doctor can tell me in business? I had many people who told me, well, the last thing you want to do is go into business with a doctor because they're a terrible businessman. Sometimes that's true.
I've had that, yeah.
Most of the time it's true, but sometimes it's not. But the fact is that it was out there. So I needed to close that gap. And hence the image. That's actually a true picture of me from back when I was in the cancer hospital and a current picture. And I had a great photographer who helped to bring those together. His name was actually Oscar Mickle. And he owns OM Photography up here in Doylestown. And again, fantastic, but he was able to help to show visually what I was trying to express in the book. Yes, I was a doctor. I'm still the same person, but now I'm taking those skills, I'm applying them differently. So it was a way to answer the question, to close that gap that people were having a cognitive dissonance. How can A do B? And the fact is that I can, because it's not about the trade of medicine. It's not the practice of medicine. It's the skills that I needed to have that are universal skills in leadership, in bringing people together in high performing teams and making high stakes decisions that I learned in practicing medicine that are, again, imminently applicable in the world of business.
It's funny you were saying that because that was exactly my thought before we saw this interview. I'm saying, guy's doctor, what does he know about business? But you've done a great job kind of explain that. Let me ask you this. If folks want to get, first of all, the book itself, so it's fairly new out, how do they go about getting the book?
Critical Leadership Playbook is available on Amazon, and it's there. It's available for purchase. If somebody would rather have an electronic copy, they can certainly email me. And my email is Mark, M-A-R-K, at Twin Lights Coaching. That's Twin Lights, plural, and then coaching.com. They can also look up the website, Twin Lights Coaching, and they can find out some information about all of our services and sort of find out some of the different levels and ways that we approach things. The best way, honestly, is if there's someone who's out there and says, I'm really thinking that I'd like to understand what's available. I have these pains. Is it something that is within the realm? Is there these friction points in business? Is this something that I understand, or is there maybe a different diagnosis to it? That's where I really love to have those free conversations, just complimentary conversation understand what people are experiencing and how I might be able to help them. The one thing that I promise, and I will always deliver on the promise, if I don't believe that I am the best, I will always be clear and will say, look, I don't know that I'm the best. Let me suggest a couple of places that you could turn. If I can't serve at the highest level, I want to make sure we find the right person because their business, their livelihood, that is what is important to them.
So kind of, I say a two-pronged thing folks should do. If they're interested in finding out more about you, check the website. We'll also considerably check the book out and or contact you. And contact information is also on the website.
Contact information is on the website. It's obviously here. For those who are on LinkedIn as well, I invite them to take a look at my LinkedIn. It's my curriculum vitae. And if they connect with me, all my contact information is available there as well.
Okay. Anyway, I'd like to thank you, Mark Lund, for being my guest on this edition of the Blaine's World webcast. Also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And hopefully next time I'm in Bucks County, which isn't often enough, but maybe we'll bump into each other, or you can get out to Asheville, North Carolina, and check out this area.
I love Asheville, and I love the Pisgah region.
Oh,
So
you've been here?
I have way back when I was a kid, the Pisgah fish camps used to be around, and all you could eat catfish and
So you should have said hello. Anyway, Mark, pleasure speaking to you. Thanks a lot.
take care.